Hello and welcome back to the Air Armoury. I'm JRH and today I'm going to be showing you and demonstrating my homemade air shotgun. This air shotgun is a project I've been working on for a while. It took me around 4 months to complete, just doing a little bit here and there, but it is now finished. Now I documented the build in a previous video, so I'll put a link to that in the description below. So this is essentially the reveal video in which I'll be showing the gun up close, talking a bit about it, and of course doing plenty of shooting. First of all, just a very quick recap. Now I decided to build this gun due to the very limited availability of air-powered shotguns, but I didn't build it entirely from scratch. I basically converted an existing air rifle, which was a beaten up old break barrel SMK XS 1918, which you can see a photo of here. My shot shells are basically made from spent 2.2 long rifle rimfire cases. Basically drilled all the way through them, put in a wad, filled them with 15 small shot, and then there's just another wad in the back, keeping it all in place. There you can see all the way through. I did have to slightly modify the breech of the gun to accept those shells. I had to drill it out slightly and then drill a recess to accept the rim. Now I had originally intended to put some kind of extractor in, but I couldn't quite work out how to do that, but luckily enough they are a nice snug fit, but they do fall out when you turn it upside down. I stripped the whole gun down, cleaned it and re-lubricated it, at which point I also polished up the piston and replaced the mainspring to give it a bit more power. Then when I put it back together I also removed the manual safety from in front of the trigger, as it didn't work particularly well and it wasn't really in keeping with the style of the shotgun I had in mind. I cut down the barrel to shorten it by about 3 inches, making the barrel now 13.5 inches or 34.3 centimeters, and that was because the end of the barrel, which I have here, was a bit of a funny shape from where it used to have a moulded fitted plastic sight on it, but also due to logistics, I had to keep the rifling in the barrel, so the shorter the barrel, the less rifling there is, which means the shot should be spinning slightly less than from a longer barrel. I then re-blued all of the metal parts. Now the original rifle had fibre optic open sights, so I removed the rear sight here and filled in the holes. You can just about see where they were. And then the front sight I drilled in and put in a shotgun bead sight. I removed the original plastic trigger guard and replaced it with an antique shotgun trigger guard, and to do that I also had to put in this new wooden inlay there to make it fit. Now, as well as that piece of wood, I also did quite a lot of other work to the stock. I removed the original rubber butt pad, replaced it with a new piece of wood to give me the same length, and then I made a metal butt plate which is then just painted black. Stripped down all the original finish, sanded out the raised comb and the Monte Carlo cheek piece, and then I also added this bit at the end there to give a rounded bit on the end of the grip. The stock was just made of beech, so I stained it with a walnut dye to get the colour, and then I refinished it with Troy oil. Then I finally added these decorative plates on each side, which both say Air Armoury 2.2 cal air shotgun 2016. And then I painted those black as well to match the butt plate. And I also stamped a serial number on it, number 1, or 01, the compression chamber, the barrel, and the stock. Overall I'm relatively pleased with it. Now I was never going to get away from the fact that it started life as a break barrel rifle, but I think I've done okay with what I had to work with and my somewhat limited wood and metalworking skills. I reckon I came up with a really good idea for making the shot shells out of old 2.2 rimfire cases, I think that by shortening the barrel, changing the front sight, and then refinishing and reshaping the stock has been really effective and has definitely given it a shotgun-esque appearance. I am, however, my own biggest critic, and there are a couple of things I'm not happy with, which unfortunately were both my own fault. Firstly, I don't know how well you can see, but the front sight is very slightly off-centre. I stupidly didn't bother to use a punch to mark exactly where it needed to go, and ended up putting it slightly too far round on the left of the barrel. I knew it was out as soon as I started drilling, but by then it was too late. As it's just a shotgun bead sight, it's not too big a deal with regard to accuracy. I just know I'd have done it perfectly had I not cut a corner. The other thing, which, if I'm honest, came down to sheer laziness on my part, is that I wish I'd spent a bit more time preparing the metalwork before I reblued it. There were a couple of areas, small areas of pitting on the original gun, which you can see through the finish, where if I just spent a bit more time sanding them I probably could have got those out. So that is a basic overview of the air shotgun. There's a lot more information in the build video, so I'd recommend giving that a watch, and as I said earlier, I'll put a link to that in the description below. So now you've seen it up and close and learned a bit more about it, and I think it's time we did some shooting with it. Now I do have a selection of targets to shoot, which I'll show you in a minute, but first I want to do some meaningful testing. Now I'm not going to do a power test, as it's going to be hard to do that on the chronograph, but it's also largely irrelevant anyway. Despite having a power of nearly 11 foot-pounds as a conventional rifle, I don't anticipate it being particularly powerful as a shotgun, and I should be able to get a rough idea of how powerful it is from what it does to my targets. What I am going to do though, with regard to the accuracy test, is because it's a shotgun, shotgun's going to go roughly in the direction of where I point the gun, so I'm not going to do a conventional accuracy test. What I really want to do is find out how tight the grouping is at different distances. Now, as the air shotgun still has a rifled barrel, the shot will spin, causing it to make a much bigger pattern. I therefore want to find the optimum range for the air shotgun, where I can shoot safely with all the shot being confined to a backstop. So I have here some A3 targets I've made, each one kind of going back a metre all the way back to 12 metres. So starting with the first one at 1 metre, I'm going to work backwards, shooting each target to find the optimum range. Well, before we even take a look at the targets, I can tell you that I'm very happy. I honestly thought the furthest back I'd be able to get would be only 5 or 6 metres, so albeit there weren't many shot on the target, I'm amazed I managed to get all the way back to 12 metres. So starting with the first target at 1 metre, as be expected the shot is all within the target in an 8.3 centimetre group. At 2 metres, that group is expanded to 12.7 centimetres. And at just 3 metres, the grouping is already at 23.1 centimetres, with not all of the shot hitting the A3 paper. There are only 14 holes in this one. The grouping then steadily gets bigger with each shot. Now on 6 metres, I thought I'd reach my limit, as at this distance only 5 shot, so only a third of the total shot I fired, hit the A3 paper, and by this point I'd given up any hope really of hitting the central silhouette target. Now I thought I'd give 7 metres a go anyway, just to see if I'd get anything on it, and to my surprise I got 10 shot on it. So not really sure what happened to my shot at 6 metres. It then stabilised a bit, and the rate of expansion of the size of the shot group slowed slightly. Then on my last shot at 12 metres, I managed to get just 3 shot on the target. Now I know that's not many, but I wasn't expecting to get any on it at that distance, and all of the shot were stopped by my backstop, which measured 55 centimetres by 70 centimetres. Now from that initial test, 2 things became very clear. Firstly, that the shot pattern expands very quickly, much quicker than it would from a true shotgun, which confirms what I'd already suspected, and that is due to the rifled barrel spinning the shot. And secondly, that the shot is moving quite slowly. As the further I moved back, there was a definite audible delay between the gun firing and the pellets hitting the target. So in terms of optimum range, it's fair to say that the closer the better, but it is usable at a few metres. And with regard to shooting my targets, which I'll show you in just a second, I will be using different distances in order to get maximum effectiveness with each specific target. So you can see here my targets. I've got some aluminium cans, I've got some chalk targets, and I've done a full review on these, so I'll put a link to that in the description below. I've got a clementine, I've got shoot and see targets, I've also done a review of those, so link in the description below. I've got some balloons, I've got Gammo zombie target, I've got a bottle of lemonade, some toy soldiers, and lastly I'll see if the air shotgun has the power to set off one of the Firebird exploding targets, and again I've done a review of those, so link in the description. The majority of the shot hit these 2 cans. Most of the shot just dented them, as you can see there, but some did go through, as you can hear. The chalk targets worked really well, but they weren't quite as effective as they could have been, as I was playing it safe and was actually too close to break a huge amount of them in one go, so I did have a second shot at them, as you saw. The clementine didn't exactly explode in a shower of juice, but there are a lot of holes all over the top of it. None of the pellets came all the way through. You can also see a bit of wadding embedded in it there as well. The shoot and see target is actually a really good indicator to show the shot pattern. This one I think had 11 of the pellets on it out of the 15 that were in the shot shell. Now I was a bit disappointed by the balloons. Now I was hoping that just one shot would burst all of them, but like with the chalk targets, I was just too close. With the zombie, you can see that most of the shot hit the top half of his face and head, which you can actually really clearly see from the back of the target. The lemonade was the most disappointing one, I think. I was hoping for something spectacular, especially as I'd shaken it up beforehand. Now I did try shooting it 2 or 3 times, and you can see the marks on it from where it was hit with that shot, but the lead shot just wasn't powerful enough to go through the plastic. The toy soldiers didn't suffer too badly at all. I think the worst casualty was probably this guy. He had his arm blown off, and there's also various scuffs and things from the pellets. Unfortunately, it ended on one final disappointment with the Firebird exploding target. Now I didn't actually think it would set it off, as I found in the past that low powered air guns generally don't work very well with them, so at least it wasn't unexpected. This one did though take 4 hits. You can see the dents on the back as well there, but it just didn't set it off. It's clear that the air shotgun is not particularly powerful. It would have been nice if it was a bit more powerful, but it's not too much of an issue really, and it was to be expected. Now I think the lack of power is down to the design of the shot shells, so I might go back to the drawing board with them. The problem is that shot is just so small and lightweight, so I might try loading them with fewer but larger shot. I also have a very slight concern about the lack of resistance the shot shells provide in order to slow the piston at the end of travel, and whether the piston might be hitting the end of the compression chamber, I'm not sure. But what should alleviate that and also help improve performance is to put some kind of shot cup within the shell. Today you've seen my homemade air shotgun. Now if you're interested in seeing how I made this in more detail, check out the making of video, which has a lot more explanation and footage of the build. As I said, I'll put a link to that in the description below, and I'll also put some detailed photos up on the Air Armoury Facebook page, including some before and after comparison photos, and I'll also put a link to that in the description below. Now I'm a relatively practical person, but I'm far from a master craftsman, so this was never going to be perfect, but I'm actually relatively happy with how it turned out, apart from just those couple of little bits I mentioned earlier on. With regard to performance, the shot pattern spreads quite quickly because of the rifled barrel, and it isn't particularly powerful, but that's okay really, as it's still at an early stage and it's pretty much just a prototype or a proof of concept at this point. Because of that, it is a plinking gun rather than being for hunting or pest control, but as a plinking gun it is really fun, and it offers something a little bit different, as there aren't many air shotguns out there, and most of them are either very rare or very expensive, or usually both, things like the Crossman 1100 Trapmaster. In terms of how much this project cost me, I paid £35 for the original rifle and an additional £69 and 2p for all the other parts, including postage. However, that was offset against the money I got from selling the parts of the original rifle that I no longer needed. So my total for this custom air shotgun and nearly 2,000 rounds of ammunition was £83.58, which I think is well worth it. Now, before I wrap up, I briefly want to just discuss the legality of this gun in order to preemptively answer any questions or comments I may receive regarding this. Now, I know quite a lot about airgun law. I've made 2 videos on it. I've got a law degree and I work in the criminal justice system, and I can safely say that this air shotgun does not require either a Section 1 firearm certificate or a Section 2 shotgun certificate. Now, to save myself repeating myself, I'm going to insert here a clip of me talking about the issue from the build video. First of all, dealing with the fact that I've manufactured it myself. I've not actually manufactured a new gun, I've simply slightly modified an existing one. Even if I had made it from scratch though, the fact that it's an air gun within the legal limit, having been made for private personal use, it's not a Section 1 firearm, and as it's not part of a trade or business, under Section 3(1)(a) of the Firearms Act 1968, I don't need to be registered as a firearms dealer to have manufactured it. Moving on to the gun itself. Now, it could be deemed to be a rifle or a shotgun or somewhere in between, so I will address both. Now, if it's deemed to be a rifle, despite cutting the barrel down to 13.5 inches, which is around 34 centimetres, it's still above the legal limit as defined in the Firearms Amendment Act 1997, i.e. that it doesn't have a barrel less than 30 centimetres in length, or the whole gun is not less than 60 centimetres in length. Even with having put a new spring in it, using a regular leg pellet over the chronograph, the gun has a power of 10.79 foot-pounds, so it's under the legal limit of 12 foot-pounds, and therefore a completely legal air rifle. If it is deemed to be a shotgun, however, it raises a few more legal questions, but it's nothing that can't be satisfactorily answered. Now, first of all, the barrel length. The legal minimum length for a shotgun barrel is 24 inches, or 61 centimetres, but before I cut this down, the barrel was only 17 inches anyway, or 43 centimetres, so cutting it down is neither here nor there really, it makes no difference to it. The reason that doesn't matter though on this gun is that because the legal definition of a shotgun. Now, under the Firearms Act 1968, definition of a shotgun includes the line, that is to say a smoothbore gun not being an air gun. Now, as this is an air gun and it still has a rifled barrel as opposed to being smoothbore, it's not deemed to be a shotgun, and therefore the stricter shotgun barrel length doesn't apply, and it doesn't require a Section 2 shotgun certificate. Now, with regard to the ammunition that I'm using in it, airgun pellets are exempt from needing a licence under Section 14B of the Firearms Act 1968. This section uses the wording ammunition for an air gun, air rifle or air pistol. So despite being shot shells, they are still air gun ammunition for an air gun. Even if you're not satisfied with that though, section 14A also exempts cartridges containing 5 or more shot, none of which exceeds 0.36 inch in diameter. Now the shotgun shells I'm using have around 15 shot in them, and they're only about 2mm in diameter anyway. And even though it fires shot shells instead of, or I should say as well as the standard airgun pellets, it's still not classified as specially dangerous, as that term only relates to a gun with 12 foot-pounds or more power, so it's still not subject to a Section 1 firearm certificate. So, thanks for watching. Hope you found the video interesting. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe to the Air Armoury, and until next time, keep your arms in the air.